"I think I'm falling for someone else," he said from paradise. A week later, he came home to packed boxes and changed locks. My name is Claire Bennett. I was 31 when my boyfriend called from the other side of the world to tell me he'd started seeing another woman. I was in our kitchen making dinner as rain tapped against the apartment windows. The pasta water was boiling, the television murmured in the background, and Ethan Cole had already been gone for 6 weeks on what he called another solo journey to clear his head. It was his third long trip that year, and like the others, I had defended it whenever friends questioned why I stayed home paying bills while he chased self-discovery across the world. I told everyone Ethan was adventurous. What I never admitted was that his freedom depended on my stability. I looked after the apartment, covered the utilities whenever his freelance income fell short, watered the plants he forgot about, and listened patiently whenever he called from another beautiful destination complaining that he still felt lost. I convinced myself that loving someone meant giving them room to find themselves. That evening, his name appeared on my screen. Behind him, the sun was setting over a tropical terrace lined with palm trees and glowing string lights. He looked relaxed, almost happier than I'd seen him in months. "Hey," I said, "how's the trip?" Instead of smiling, he hesitated. "Claire, I need to tell you something." The knife stopped in my hand. "What is it?" His eyes flicked towards someone just outside the camera before returning to me. "I met someone." For a moment, the words didn't register. "You met someone?" "Her name's Olivia. We've been spending a lot of time together." The pasta water hissed over the side of the pot. I turned off the burner without taking my eyes off the screen. "What exactly does spending time together mean?" Hal rubbed the back of his neck. "We've developed a connection." "What kind of connection?" I took a slow breath. "I think we're in a situationship." I stared at him. "You're in a what?" "It's not exactly dating," he said carefully. "It's more than friendship. We've become emotionally close and we're trying to figure out what it means. While you're still with me." His jaw tightened. "That's why I'm telling you. I don't want to hide it anymore." "How long has this been going on?" "That's not the point." "It's the only point. Claire, don't turn this into an interrogation." His voice stayed calm, almost rehearsed, as though he'd already decided how this conversation would end and only needed me to accept it. "You called your girlfriend to tell her you're emotionally involved with another woman," I said. "How else did you expect this to go?" "I still love you." A hollow laugh almost escaped me. "Does Olivia know that?" He hesitated. "She knows you exist." "That's not what I asked." "She knows." "Things are complicated." I set the knife on the counter. Outside, headlights slid across the rain-soaked street while the apartment around me suddenly felt unfamiliar. Every photograph, every piece of his mail, every jacket he'd left behind reminded me how much space he'd occupied without ever fully being present. "It isn't complicated," I said quietly. "We're over." His expression shifted instantly. "Wait, what?" "You're building a relationship with someone else." "It isn't like that." "You just described emotional intimacy with another woman." "I was honest with you." "You were honest after it happened. That should count for something." "It does," I replied. "It marks the moment I realized our relationship was already over." "Claire, slow down. You're making a permanent decision because you're upset." "No, you made the permanent decision when you started exploring another woman." "I didn't plan this." The words sounded polished, like something he'd repeated enough times to believe himself. "How long have you known her?" "A few weeks." "How many?" I looked away. 3, maybe 4. "You've been gone 6. I needed time to understand my feelings." "So you waited until you knew whether she was worth leaving me for?" "That's not fair." "Is she there right now?" His eyes drifted off camera again. "Claire, is Olivia sitting beside you?" "That doesn't matter." It mattered enough that he still wouldn't answer. I could already picture her waiting just outside the frame while he explained our 3-year relationship as another chapter in his journey of self-discovery. "You wanted me to stay here just in case," I said. "You wanted to see where this went without risking the life you already had." "That's not what I said." "You didn't have to." His patience finally cracked. "You're being unbelievably judgmental. And you're hiding cheating behind therapy language. We haven't even put a label on it. You called it a situationship 5 minutes ago." He leaned closer to the camera. "I'm trying to be emotionally honest. You always said you wanted communication. I wanted honesty before betrayal, Ethan. Not a courtesy call after you'd already found my replacement." "That's cruel." "No, cruel is expecting me to keep loving you while you decide which woman has the better future." He opened his mouth again, but I was done listening. "Enjoy the rest of your trip." "Claire, don't hang up. I hope Olivia has room for all your complications." I ended the call. I stood in the silent kitchen for a long moment, waiting for tears that never came. Instead, everything from the past year suddenly made sense. The endless trips, the late rent, The calls that ended the moment someone walked into the room, and the way our apartment became your place whenever we argued, but our home whenever he needed something. I walked to the desk, opened the lease folder, and looked at the only name listed beneath: tenant. Claire Bennett. Ethan Cole wasn't. I'd rented the apartment for 4 years before Ethan moved in 11 months earlier. He occasionally gave me cash or sent a Venmo payment, but there was never a lease, a rental agreement, or even a consistent contribution. Deep down, he'd always assumed the apartment would remain his because I'd never ask him to leave. I carried the first empty box into the bedroom. Ethan liked calling himself a minimalist, although most of his minimalism relied on things I'd bought. I packed his clothes, books, toiletries, headphones, travel gear, laptop stand, meditation cushion, and the 23 crystals he'd lined up along the bedroom window. By midnight, 8 neatly labeled boxes were stacked beside the front door, each photographed before I sealed it. Then I texted him from my work phone because he'd already started calling through different apps. "Your belongings are packed. Arrange somewhere else to stay when you return." His reply came almost instantly. "Are you serious?" "Yes. You can't throw me out. I live here. You lived here because we were together. We aren't anymore. We need to talk in person. There's nothing left to discuss. I was honest with you. You cheated and expected honesty to erase it." The typing bubble appeared, disappeared, then returned one last time. "You're going to regret this before you know the whole story." I blocked his number, switched off the kitchen light, and went to bed. 7 days later, my phone started vibrating just after 8 in the morning. Unknown numbers, WhatsApp, Telegram, then an email with the subject line: "You need to let me in." I deleted it unread. At 11, the locksmith replaced the deadbolt, updated the electronic lock, and handed me 3 new keys. "Relationship problems?" he asked. "Former relationship." He smiled knowingly. "Those are usually the ones that need new locks." By early afternoon, Ethan's boxes were lined up neatly outside my apartment door. Every item had been labeled, photographed, and packed without damage. I wanted a complete record because I hadn't forgotten his last message. "You're going to regret this before you know the whole story." At 3:20 p.m., I heard metal scrape against the lock, followed by a sharp knock. "Claire!" I tried the key again before knocking harder. "Open the door." I checked the camera before unlocking it, with the security chain still in place. Ethan stood in the hallway wearing the same linen shirt from our video call, sunburned from 6 weeks abroad with a hiking backpack slung over one shoulder. Rebecca, his older sister, stood beside him, while Noah was already filming everything with his phone. Ethan looked from the boxes to the new lock. "You changed it." "My apartment, my lock. I just got off a 14-hour flight." "That doesn't change anything." Rebecca stepped forward. "Claire, can we please handle this like adults?" "I am." "No, you packed his entire life into boxes." "I packed his belongings after he admitted he was involved with another woman." Noah lifted his phone. "For the record, Ethan told you the truth." I looked straight into the camera. "For the record, Ethan admitted he'd been seeing another woman for nearly a month." "It wasn't a relationship," Ethan said. "You called it a situationship." I was confused. "You sounded very sure when you told me." His expression softened. "Claire, please let me inside." "No, we need privacy." "You brought an audience." "I'm recording because we were worried about how you'd react," Noah said. "Then you'll be happy the camera captures everything." Rebecca turned to Ethan. "Just apologize." He stepped closer. "Claire, I made a mistake." I stayed silent. "Olivia doesn't mean anything. Last week you called it a deep emotional connection." I got caught up in the moment. "For 4 weeks? I didn't understand what I was feeling." "You understood enough to hide it." His eyes searched mine. "I choose you." The words landed exactly as I expected. It didn't sound like love. It sounded like someone returning to the option he thought would still be waiting. He spoke as though he expected me to feel relieved. "You choose me?" "Yes." I shook my head. "You don't get to try another woman and come back when it doesn't work." "That's not what happened." "Then tell me what did." I glanced at Rebecca and Noah before answering. I realized what we had was real. "And Olivia?" "It's over." "When?" "Yesterday." "Did you end it?" Silence. That was all the answer I needed. "So Olivia ended it." "That doesn't change how I feel about you." "No, it explains why you're suddenly standing outside my door." "This is my home. It was the apartment you lived in because we were together." "I paid rent. Sometimes. I contributed. When it suited you." His tone sharpened. "You can't legally throw me out. Your name isn't on the lease." "That doesn't mean I don't have rights." Noah stepped forward with his phone still recording. "This is an illegal eviction." "Then call a lawyer." "You think having more money means you can do whatever you want?" "I think the lease is in my name, the relationship is over, and you need somewhere else to stay." Rebecca sighed. Claire, could he at least stay tonight? No. He just got off a long flight. He had enough time to manage 2 relationships. He had enough time to book a hotel. Ethan's voice softened. Baby, please. The word made my stomach turn. Don't call me that. I'm sorry. You're sorry there were consequences. I'm sorry I hurt you. You called me from a resort while another woman was waiting just off camera. She wasn't there. You looked at her twice. For the first time he realized I'd noticed. I was looking at people walking by. You refused to answer whether she was nearby because you were already angry. I was angry because my boyfriend admitted he was emotionally involved with someone else. I should have handled it differently. You shouldn't have done it at all. He rested a hand against the door. Please let me inside so we can talk privately. I glanced at Noah's phone. You brought the audience. Rebecca turned toward him. Put the phone away. No, we need evidence. Evidence of what? I asked. Financial abuse. I looked from Noah to Ethan. Neither of them seemed surprised by the accusation. They discussed it before knocking on my door. How exactly did I financially abuse him? You controlled the apartment. I rented it years before we met. You made him financially dependent. I encouraged him to keep a steady job. You knew his income was unstable. And he knew mine wasn't. Ethan straightened. You always used money against me. When? You reminded me whenever rent was late. That's called asking someone to pay their share. You made me feel ashamed. You chose vacations over paying on time. Rebecca rubbed her temples. This isn't helping. No, I said. It's finally making everything clear. Ethan's patience disappeared. I gave you cash. Sometimes. And Venmo. 10 payments in 11 months. That still makes me a tenant. Then speak to an attorney. I will. I hope you do. Noah lifted the phone again. So you're clearly refusing to let Ethan back into the apartment where he's lived for almost a year? Yes. He blinked, clearly expecting hesitation. There isn't any. I looked straight into Noah's phone. I'm refusing to let my ex-boyfriend back into my apartment after he admitted he was involved with another woman. His belongings are packed, undamaged, and ready to be collected. Unbelievable, Noah muttered. Make sure you film the boxes too. Rebecca sighed and reached for one. Come on, Ethan, let's get your things. Hein didn't move. Instead, he kept staring at me. I know you're angry, but when you've had time to think, you'll realize this is a mistake. I'm thinking clearly now. You always shut down and make decisions without caring how they affect everyone else. You made a decision that affected both of us long before you called to tell me. I was honest. No, you confessed after the fact. Rebecca tried again. Claire, where is he supposed to sleep tonight? With you. My apartment's tiny. Then Noah's. I have roommates. Then his mother's house or a hotel. Ethan gave a bitter laugh. You know I can't afford that. You just spent 6 weeks traveling overseas. Figure this out the same way you figured that out. His expression hardened. This isn't who you are. You're right. I used to be the woman who cleaned up every mess you made. I'm done. Rebecca carried another box toward the elevator, while Noah reluctantly followed, still recording. Ethan stayed where he was. Claire, please. No, just one night. No, I don't have anywhere to go. You have a sister, a best friend, a mother, and apparently enough charm to start another relationship on another continent. That was cruel. It was true. His voice sharpened. You're humiliating me. You brought the audience. I looked at the boxes. You packed my whole life. I packed your belongings carefully. My coffee maker? Mine. My speaker? Box 4. My gaming console? You sold it 3 months ago to pay for your flight. Hung fell silent. What about the framed photo? I kept the frame. Your copy of the picture is in box 2. You planned this. I responded to what you told me. No, you were looking for an excuse. I almost laughed. For 3 years, I paid most of our bills, rearranged my life around your trips, and defended you when everyone else saw the truth. I wasn't waiting for an excuse to leave. You finally gave me one. Then why does this seem so easy? It isn't. My voice cracked despite myself. It just doesn't change the right decision. For a second, he mistook my pain for hesitation. You don't love me anymore. I love the man I thought you were. I had no answer. I closed the door. A second later, his fist struck the wood. Claire! Another bang followed. You can't do this. Rebecca told him to stop. Noah reminded him the camera was still recording, and the hallway finally fell quiet. Over the next 20 minutes, I watched the boxes disappear through the security camera until only a single crystal remained on the floor. I picked it up with a tissue and left it on the building manager's desk downstairs. That evening, Mia sent me a link. Noah had uploaded the video. This is what financial abuse looks like. A man made homeless for trying to be honest about his feelings. The edit showed Ethan crying and me refusing to open the door. Everything that mattered had been cut. His admission about Olivia, the weeks-long affair, and the threats that followed. By midnight, the video had spread widely, splitting viewers between those who called me heartless and those who asked why a cheating boyfriend expected to move back in. I ignored it. The next morning, Mr. Alvarez, our building manager, called me into his office. Ethan's mother filed a complaint, he said. I checked the records. You're the only tenant on the lease. Ethan only had building access and I've already removed it. From the building's perspective, this matter is closed. If he comes back, we'll handle it. For the first time in days, I felt relieved. It lasted less than 2 weeks. 12 days later, a process server walked into my office and handed me a lawsuit in front of half my co-workers. Ethan was suing me for unlawful eviction, emotional distress, financial abuse, and the value of property he claimed I'd stolen. The inventory was almost laughable. My coffee maker, a floor lamp I'd owned since college, kitchen appliances, towels, the television, even my Netflix account, which he valued at $400 for loss of streaming access. He also claimed I destroyed his belongings, despite the video showing every box sealed and intact. The lawsuit demanded more than $18,000. That afternoon, I hired an attorney. Rachel Morris read the complaint without interrupting. When she finished, she removed her glasses and looked at me. Most of this is nonsense. Most? The eviction claim is the only part they'll try to argue, but even that's weak. Tell me exactly how he lived there. I answered every question. Ethan had made 10 irregular Venmo payments over 11 months. There was no lease, no rental agreement, no utility bills in his name, and I'd given him a full week to collect his belongings. I also had photographs from before and after packing, along with Noah's video of the confrontation. Rachel nodded as she reviewed the property list. You have receipts for the larger items? Most of them. She pointed at the coffee maker television, then the line claiming ownership of my Netflix account. I don't think any judge is going to award someone permanent rights to an ex-girlfriend's streaming password. I laughed for the first time in days. This lawsuit isn't about winning, Rachel said. It's about pressuring you into giving him something. Money, access to the apartment, or an apology. Then we'll fight it. She smiled. Good answer. We filed our response with the lease, payment records, receipts, photographs, text messages, Mr. Alvarez's statement confirming Ethan had never been a tenant, and a preserved copy of Noah's original video before it could be altered again. A week later, Ethan's attorney withdrew from the case. The email was brief. The firm no longer represented Ethan, and any future communication should go directly to him. That evening, Rebecca called. I almost ignored it, but she was the only person outside my apartment that day who'd looked genuinely uncomfortable. What do you want? I'm not calling to argue, she said quietly. I thought you deserved to know what really happened. I'm listening. Olivia ended things the day before Ethan came back. I figured. He told you they broke up. He didn't tell you why. I waited. He told Olivia you and he had already been separated for months. She believed she was dating a single man. I felt my grip tighten around the phone. So he introduced me as his ex. Yes. How did she find out? When he called her after you changed the locks, she asked why his ex still had all his belongings. That's when he admitted you were together the entire time. So she dumped him. Immediately. A bitter laugh escaped me. Then he came straight to my apartment and said he'd chosen me. Rebecca didn't answer for a moment. He never chose you, Claire. I know, I said. He lost her. Her voice grew quieter. There's something else. Ethan keeps saying there's more to the story, but every time I ask what he means, he refuses to answer. Before I could respond, my phone vibrated. An unknown number, a voicemail appeared, followed almost immediately by a text. You think Olivia left because she found out about you? She didn't. Ask her what she found in my room. I read it twice. Claire, Rebecca asked, are you still there? Yes. He sent you something, didn't he? I looked at the lawsuit still lying on my kitchen table. Yeah. What did it say? I didn't answer. For the first time since Ethan's call from that terrace, I wondered whether Olivia had only uncovered part of what he'd been hiding. After we hung up, I tried to ignore the message. Ethan had spent the last 2 weeks lying, threatening, and manipulating everyone around him. Whatever Olivia had found shouldn't have mattered anymore. Then my phone rang again. Another unfamiliar number. This time I answered. Claire. The woman on the other end hesitated. My name's Olivia. I closed my eyes. I almost didn't call, she admitted. But I owe you an apology. So Rebecca told you what happened. She told me enough. I believed Ethan when he said you two had broken up months before we met. I didn't know you still lived together. And I didn't know he was introducing another woman as his girlfriend. When he came back from the trip, he called me crying because you'd packed his things. I asked why his ex still had all his belongings. She let out a tired breath. That's when he admitted you were never his ex. So you ended it. Immediately. Neither of us spoke for a moment. The woman I'd spent weeks imagining wasn't angry or defensive. She sounded just as exhausted as I felt. I'm sorry, she said quietly. I believe you. I wish I'd known sooner. So do I. She hesitated. I assume Ethan told you to ask me about something. A journal. Yes. She found it during the last week of their trip, hidden beneath the bed in the apartment they'd rented. At first she thought it was an old notebook, but one page caught her attention. It wasn't a diary, she said. It was a plan. A plan? For both of us. My stomach tightened. He wrote about timing, about making sure one relationship was secure before ending the other. Your name was everywhere. So was mine. Can you send it to me? I already started. An email notification appeared before she finished speaking. There are 12 pages, she said. I'll send the rest tonight. Why are you helping me? Because he manipulated both of us, and because he still won't stop calling. After we hung up, I opened the first image. At the top of the page was a date nearly 5 weeks before Ethan left for his trip. Beneath it, one sentence had been underlined. Claire is stability. Olivia could be a better future. Don't give up one until the other is guaranteed. My chest tightened. The following pages were worse. Ethan had listed advantages, financial risks, emotional risks, and even scripts for future conversations. One paragraph read, Tell Claire I'm finding myself. She'll try to understand because she's always patient. Don't leave until Olivia proves she's serious. The breakup call, the rehearsed pauses, the carefully chosen words. None of it had been spontaneous. He'd planned everything before he ever boarded the plane. The next page outlined what to do if Olivia rejected him. Apologize to Claire. Call it confusion. Mention honesty. Promise therapy. If necessary, involve family. Rebecca asking for one more night. Noah filming. Margaret defending him. None of it felt accidental anymore. Another email from Olivia arrived. The last pages are the worst. Before I could open them, Rachel called. Save every file Olivia sends, she said. I already have. Good. Rachel's voice turned serious. If those pages are authentic, this isn't just evidence of cheating. It's proof Ethan planned to keep you as a backup while building another relationship. I looked back at the next image as it finished loading. One sentence stood out immediately. Never let Claire think she's plan B. If she figures it out too early, everything falls apart. I kept reading. The journal wasn't emotional. There was no guilt, anger, or regret. Every page was filled with plans, timelines, backup options, and calculated decisions. It read less like a diary than a project plan. The earliest entry was dated nearly 2 months before his trip. Olivia seems interested. Don't rush. Claire is still useful until I'm certain. The word useful kept pulling my eyes back to the page. A few pages later, he had drawn a comparison chart. Under Claire, he wrote, stable, reliable, patient, financially organized. Under Olivia, exciting, independent, loves traveling, better opportunities overseas. At the bottom, he had written, need more data before deciding. I closed the laptop for a moment. For 3 years, I thought we were building a future together. Instead, I'd been reduced to a column in his decision-making process. The next morning, Rachel called. Did you finish reading it? Unfortunately. What stood out? He ranked us. She thought I'd misunderstood. He actually compared you. He built decision charts. I emailed her every page. Less than 15 minutes later, she called back. I've practiced family law for almost 20 years, she said. I've seen affairs, lies, and people keeping backup relationships. I've never seen anyone document it this carefully. She advised me not to publish the journal. If Ethan files another lawsuit, this becomes valuable evidence. Don't give him an excuse to claim you're trying to humiliate him. I followed her advice. 2 weeks later, another attorney sent a letter accusing me of damaging Ethan's reputation. Rachel laughed after reading it. You haven't said a word publicly. She sent a short response demanding they identify every allegedly defamatory statement. They never replied. Meanwhile, Ethan's story was falling apart on its own. Noah uploaded another emotional video, but viewers started asking the questions he couldn't answer. If Claire abused him, why was he desperate to move back in? Why fight so hard to get into an apartment he claimed was unsafe? The comments spread faster than the video itself. By the next morning, Noah had disabled comments entirely. Rebecca called again a few days later. I'm sorry, she said quietly. I should have stopped him. You didn't create this. But I helped excuse it. Then she admitted something that made me open the journal again. He kept saying, Claire always forgives, and I flipped through the pages until I found the line. Don't panic if Claire gets upset. She forgives eventually. She always has. I read it aloud. Rebecca went silent. I don't even recognize my brother anymore. Slowly, The people closest to Ethan reached the same conclusion. Noah stopped posting. Margaret stopped demanding money. Even Rebecca admitted every family gathering had turned into another argument because Ethan insisted everyone else had betrayed him. He never admitted the obvious. He'd always hidden behind words like situationship, complicated, growth, and finding himself because they sounded better than saying two simple words. I cheated. Therapy became part of my routine. During one session, my therapist asked, "When did you first realize something was wrong?" I thought about it before answering. The trips. What about them? They kept getting longer, and somehow I convinced myself that distance meant maturity instead of avoidance. She nodded. And what hurts most? It isn't losing him. What is it? Not knowing which memories were real. That question stayed with me long after I left her office. At home, I found myself flipping through old photos of birthdays, weekend trips, Christmas dinners, and lazy movie nights. For the first time, I couldn't tell whether those smiles had been genuine or whether Ethan had already been planning his exit. The uncertainty hurt more than the breakup itself. About a month after his lawsuit collapsed, I ran into Noah outside a grocery store. He looked tired, older somehow, and nowhere near as confident as he'd seemed while filming outside my apartment. Claire, I nodded. I don't want to argue, he said. I owe you an apology. I waited. Ethan stayed with me for almost 3 weeks. He blamed everyone for his problems, never helped around the apartment, and even asked me to help pay for another lawyer. When my landlord wanted him gone, he said I was abandoning him just like you. Noah shook his head. I should have listened. And I never should have called you abusive. I appreciate the apology, I said. Then I walked away. 3 days later, Rachel called. I need to warn you. My stomach tightened. What happened? Ethan has started telling people you physically abused him. The room seemed to go silent. That's a lie. I know, Rebecca knows too. The problem is that rumors don't need evidence. She explained that Ethan had quietly begun spreading the story through relatives, friends, and mutual acquaintances. This time Rachel wasn't preparing for another lawsuit. She was preparing in case the accusation grew into something more serious. Save every message, she said. Keep every email. Request the building security footage before it's deleted, and identify anyone who witnessed the confrontation outside your apartment. That evening, Rebecca called. I tried to stop him, she said. What is he telling people? That you slapped him. I never touched him. I know. When I asked when it supposedly happened, he couldn't even answer. Then why would anyone believe him? She sighed. Because some people hear an accusation and never wait for proof. After we hung up, I looked at Ethan's journal lying open on my coffee table. First, he'd renamed cheating. Then he'd renamed the consequences. Now he was trying to rewrite reality itself. I thought the breakup had ended the story. Instead, I realized something far more dangerous. Ethan wasn't afraid of losing me. I was afraid of losing control of the story. The rumor spread quietly through phone calls, family conversations, and mutual friends. That made it even harder to stop because by the time it reached someone new, it no longer sounded like gossip. It sounded like the truth. Rachel called me into her office the next morning. We're treating this as a reputation issue now, she said. I haven't done anything. I know. That's why we prepare before he escalates. Together we rebuilt the entire timeline. The day Ethan left, the video call, the lock change, the confrontation, the lawsuit, every voicemail, unknown number, and email. By the end of the meeting, we had a complete record of everything that had happened. If he makes another accusation, Rachel said, resting a hand on Ethan's journal, we'll have evidence ready before he tells the story. She also wanted independent witnesses. Within days, we collected statements from people with no personal connection to either of us. Mr. Alvarez confirmed Ethan had never been a tenant. The locksmith verified I changed the locks as the sole leaseholder, and building security confirmed Ethan arrived with Rebecca and Noah before leaving with every box. The security footage matched every statement. His version had no evidence. Mine did. A week later, Rebecca asked to meet. She looked exhausted. I don't know how to fix this, she admitted. You can't. She gave a tired smile. Mom still thinks everything would have been fine if you'd forgiven Ethan. She's entitled to that opinion. Rebecca stared into her coffee. The hardest part is that Ethan doesn't think he did anything wrong anymore. What do you mean? He says everything happened because he felt trapped. I let out a quiet breath. That's easier than admitting he made a choice. I almost laughed. I wanted someone dependable. And when he found it, Rebecca said quietly, he decided it was boring. Before we left, she stopped me. He's talking about apologizing. Noah had already asked him to move out. Margaret stopped paying his legal bills and the friends who had defended him slowly walked away. One by one, they stopped making excuses for Ethan and accepted the same truth. He wasn't fighting everyone else. He was facing the consequences of his own choices. From then on, life slowly settled into a rhythm that no longer revolved around Ethan. The lawsuit never returned. The anonymous calls stopped, and for the first time in months I could leave work without wondering if Ethan would be waiting outside. When I told my therapist, the silence felt unsettling. She smiled. "You're waiting for another crisis." "I guess I am. That's normal. After living in conflict for so long, peace can feel unfamiliar before it feels safe." She was right. I repainted the apartment, replaced the furniture we'd chosen together, and donated the last framed photo of Ethan. The volunteer at the donation center smiled, getting rid of old memories, making room for better ones. About 4 months after the breakup, I met Daniel Hayes in a neighborhood bookstore. We reached for the same history book, laughed, and spent the next hour talking. There was nothing dramatic about it, just an easy conversation that felt refreshingly uncomplicated. When he asked me to coffee, I said yes. Dating again wasn't effortless. The first time Daniel traveled for work, old fears crept back. I admitted that to him over dinner. "I'm sorry," I said. "For what?" "Sometimes I forget you're not Ethan." He reached across the table. "I'm not asking you to trust me right away. I'm asking you to let me earn it." That difference stayed with me. Ethan had always treated trust as something that would never disappear. Daniel understood it had to be earned, one small promise at a time. A month later, Margaret sent one last email. It wasn't angry this time. She wrote that Ethan was taking medication, barely sleeping, and struggling with panic attacks before suggesting I should think about what I'd done to him. I deleted it without replying. My therapist later asked how it made me feel. "Guilty," I admitted. "And relieved." "Relieved?" That I didn't answer. She smiled. Sometimes silence is the healthiest boundary. 2 weeks later, Rebecca called again. He admitted something. What? He finally told Mom he pursued Olivia. And the abuse accusations. He says he exaggerated because he was hurt. So he still won't call them lies. No. Before hanging up, she added softly, "You were the best thing that ever happened to my brother. He just realized it too late." Months earlier, I would have cried hearing those words. This time I simply thanked Rebecca and moved on. That evening, Daniel brought takeout. He noticed my mood immediately. "Everything okay?" "I'm just closing another chapter." And I looked around the apartment. The fresh paint, the quiet rooms, and the life I'd rebuilt reminded me there was nothing left to question. I wouldn't change a thing. He smiled. "I'm glad." 6 months after Ethan's call from that rooftop terrace, I finally stopped reaching for my phone every time it buzzed. The legal case quietly came to an end. The threats stopped, and Ethan's journal remained locked away. Not out of revenge, but because it was evidence I hoped I'd never need again. Daniel and I took things slowly. There were no dramatic promises, just small moments that quietly earned my trust. If work delayed him, he told me. If he promised to call, he did. Over time, I stopped waiting for something to go wrong. During one therapy session, my therapist asked, "If Ethan apologized today, what would you do?" "I'd thank him," I said. "And then I'd leave." "Why?" "Because forgiveness doesn't mean going back." A week later, Daniel asked if I regretted how everything ended. I thought about it. "I regret trusting the wrong person," I said. "I don't regret walking away." That night, we finished cooking dinner together. Daniel raised his glass. "To new beginnings." I smiled. 2 honest ones. Our glasses touched softly, and for a while we simply watched the rain drift across the city lights without saying another word. Months earlier, I'd stood in that same apartment, convinced my life had fallen apart. Now I understood the truth. Nothing had fallen apart. The illusion had, and once it disappeared, it finally made room for something real.